typically
to share Islam. I'm your host, Yusuf Estes, with another episode about the subject of Islam and how to share it. In previous episodes, we've talked about the pillars of Islam, what Islam actually is, and we've mentioned that the source of Islam is, in fact, the Quran from Allah and the teachings of Muhammad, peace be upon him. And we've discussed who the people are that we need to share Islam with. We've talked about ourselves, of course, being number one, our immediate family, the outer family, our neighbors and friends, those that we work with, and those that we encounter along the way during the day, the wayfarer, the poor, those who are traveling, the orphans, all the people that we encounter every day that we meet. We're supposed to do what? Share Islam. What we would like now to do is to deal with an aspect or facet of this sharing and treat it from a realistic point of view. There are many verses in the Quran talking to different individuals on different levels of belief or lack of it, encouraging them to believe. Of course, I know that the Quran is the number one source. As much as we can, we should use the Quran, give the Quran to people in a language that they can understand, at least to get started, and then encourage them to learn the Arabic language. Because without the Lughat Arabiya, a person doesn't really comprehend, doesn't really get the depth and the beauty of Islam. So, when we talk about sharing Islam, one of the things that I like to do is tell them that this Arabic language will really help you if you really want to know. It's not a requirement from that standpoint. You don't tell somebody if you don't have Arabic language you can't go to paradise, because that's not true at all. But it is something that's a benefit to you that if you will just take the time to learn, you'd be surprised what you can do. Along the way, though, you'll find that many people, even Muslims themselves, say that, you know, this Arabiya, this language of Arabic is it's so different, and I think it's too hard for me. If I know English, obviously you know English, you wouldn't be listening to me, would you? If I know the English language, I'm writing when I write or reading when I read from the left side of the page to the right side of the page, but in Arabic it goes from the right side of the page to the left side of the page. And the letters are nothing like what I'm familiar with. If I want to learn Russian, at least they have some of the letters that look like some of the letters that I already know. If I want to learn Spanish or French or Italian or Portuguese, all of these are using Latin-based letters that I can at least try to guess what the pronunciation is. But when I look at Arabic, like somebody said to me, it's Chinese to me, man. Of course, it's not Chinese. Chinese goes up and down, but I understand the point, because it's so different. How will I get started? I myself had the same problem. You know, it was several years after I got into Islam before I really tried to spend time to learn the Arabic language, to study, to find out how these letters are formed, how they come together, what they sound like, how to pronounce them, how to write them, and then how to put it together, how to form words, and how to make sentences, how to speak to somebody in the streets using it, how to read from the Quran and understand that. And in fact, I'm still learning. I think all of us are to some degree. But I realized a long time ago that it was important for the English speakers to be able to grasp the Arabic using what you already know. Because if you think about it, there are things that you and I know that we use, the reality of what's around us every day, that we shouldn't just drop, turn our backs on, and walk away from when we consider a new subject. In fact, every new subject that we learn, we relate it to what we already know, what we've already learned about another subject. So what we did, we developed a course along with some of our brothers and sisters in Islam, some scholars of Arabic and others who have helped us put together a project online on the internet called Arabic in English. Yes, Arabic in English. You can use what you know in the English language to begin to learn Arabic. So when you have time and you want to do that, and it's free, you go to arabicinenglish.com. Check it out and see if that will help you. Because when you're trying to explain these things to others, or even understand it for yourself, the comprehension of the Arabic language is crucial. It's essential to really get the depth of the meaning. Now, one of the things that, when I'm talking about this Arabic language, I realize too that there are going to be a lot of people who will say, well, if that's what it takes, I'm just going to forget about the whole thing. And I definitely don't want them to come away with this understanding. Actually, that's a misunderstanding. What they should understand is that this is a way to do more, easier, and faster to be able to get the grasp on this Arabic language. And when we read the Quran and we read the teachings of Muhammad called Hadith, all of them are still preserved in this original language. If a person knew anything at all about the Bible, they would know that the original languages of the Bible are actually Hebrew, Aramaic, and from some translations anyway, into Koine Greek. Others later were translated into Latin. And you may find even other languages as well that are dating way back, maybe 1800, 1900 years ago. All of these languages that they use then are basically dead languages. For the most part, nobody speaks them anymore. And the manuscripts that are still surviving from these ancient times are only in small pieces and very difficult to read or understand. And in some cases, the scholars have to take what they call the educated guess as to what the meanings might have been or the way that people understood it at their time. Whereas with Islam, the sources are still preserved, even until today, just as they have been throughout the last 14 centuries. The Quran is recited every day by Muslims around the earth. 1.5 billion people today are still reciting the Quran exactly as it was revealed back then. Word for word, letter for letter, dot for dot. Every part of it is still the same in the Quran. And as far as the teachings of Muhammad, what we call the Hadith, these are preserved and they are memorized and they're recited, just as the Quran is. Quran can be written down, Hadith can be written down, Quran can be recited, and the Hadith can be recited. These two methods of conveying the message have come down to us all the way from the lips of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And this is something very beautiful for us to realize, that this way of Islam has been preserved for us so that we can use it and share it. And that sharing is what we've been talking about right here. I'm not saying that you have to do it, but if you do it, even make a little try toward it, you'd be surprised at how easy it can be. I personally learned to read and write the Arabic language, being able to make the characters and decipher the characters and pronounce the sounds in less than 6 weeks. And I believe that anybody who really applies themselves can get a good head start if they'll do two things. One, have the desire, of course, and the other is to put it into action. Well, there's actually a third thing, and maybe that comes before everything else. And that's to ask Allah, "Oh Allah, increase me in my knowledge. Increase me in my knowledge." And the way that He told us to do that in the Quran was to say, "Rabbi zidni ilma. Rabbi zidni ilma." Try that. Rabbi zidni ilma. Allah, increase me in my knowledge. And then begin step by step. And along the way, take your own speed, your own pace, and enjoy it. And then you'll be surprised with the results. We're going to take a break now. We'll be back right after the break. Give you some time to think this over and see just how fast you want to get started. Sit tight, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Share Islam. We've already learned that the basis of Islam is based on two very important sources. The Quran, which was recited to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel, and the teachings of Muhammad called Hadith. We've also learned that they came in the Arabic language. And if we really want to get the depth and understanding and the comprehension, that it would be essential for us to at least begin to learn some of the Arabiya. What I would like to do now is just to give you a few of the words that we do use every day. Even the non-Muslims use these same words, but it's important for us to get a grasp or a better or deeper understanding of some of those words. The first word is Islam itself. Often I've heard Muslims tell me Islam is peace. Well, certainly I won't argue with them because there is peace within Islam. But that is not the meaning of Islam. If it were, Muslims would greet each other by saying, Islam alaikum. And that doesn't make any sense. In fact, Muslims say, Salam alaikum. Because the word salam means peace. It's interesting to note that in the Hebrew language, the word for peace is shalom. Shalom alaikum, which is very similar to salam alaikum. Now, the word Islam comes from a root sin, lam, mim. Those are the three letters. And from this come forth many beautiful words. And one of those words is aslama, and that's the verb. The action of doing Islam is aslama. Aslama means to surrender completely and totally, and to submit to some terms, then to obey those terms, to live up to the contractual agreement that's implied by the submission. Then the fourth word is to do this sincerely. Because when a person is sincerely surrendering, submitting, and obeying their Creator, their Sustainer, they are doing aslama in peace. And that's where the word salam fits. It means to achieve the inner peace of your relationship between you and your Creator, the Lord above, Almighty God. And when we explain it to other people, it makes a lot of sense to them, rather than just saying Islam as the name of a religion. I recall looking in the dictionary one time and seeing the definition of the word Islam, and all it said was, see Mohammedism. Now that doesn't make any sense at all. Especially if somebody knows the real Islam, the meaning behind it, because they would immediately say, wait a minute. Mohammedism implies that you are following Muhammad blindly, that he's your God, maybe you're worshiping Muhammad, and this is not at all what Islam is about. Islam is to obey God by the way that is shown to us through the Quran and the teachings of the last prophet, which is Muhammad. Yes, but we do not worship Muhammad. And if anybody thinks we worship Muhammad, they've made a very serious mistake. He worshiped God and encouraged us to do the same thing. In fact, that is something that we find in the Quran. It's telling us about the people before us, that their prophets all told them, I'm a messenger of God to you, telling you to worship God. Yet some of the people later attributed the divine attributes of God to their prophets and worshiped them instead or along with God. This would be a big mistake. To define Islam in its entirety could take literally weeks, months, or who knows how long. But simply put, Islam is submission in peace to God. Use those words, and I think you'll be able to get away with it, at least as a cursory introduction to the meaning of this word. About the word Muslim, it's very simple to explain that to someone as well. Oftentimes people didn't know. They didn't know that Islam and Muslim are almost essentially the same word. I remember one time I was on a radio show, and as we were leaving the control booth, the hostess of the show turned to me and she said, "Oh, while we were on the air, I forgot to ask you an important question." I said, "What was the question?" She said, "I wanted to ask you if you were one of the Muslims or if you were Islamic." I said, "What?" She said, "Yes, I know that, there's some difference there between being an Islamic and a Muslim." I wish that I'd have the time, and I really wish that she had asked me on there, because it would have given me the great opportunity of clearing up a big misconception that she had, and perhaps many of the people in her area shared this misconception. To be in Islam is to be a Muslim. Just like running in a race makes you a runner. Just like talking in a speech makes you a talker. Just like flying in an airplane makes you a flyer. The fact that you do something, you put ER after it in English, don't you? And you say, flyer, walker, talker, jumper, thinker, stinker. Well, hold on. Whoever does an action in English, you add the suffix ER. But in Arabic, when someone does an action, oftentimes you add the prefix of mu. It's the letter meme in Arabic. Musalli, someone who does the salah. Mu'adhan, someone who calls to the prayer, and so on. And I talk about this often. Perhaps you've even seen me in some of the other programs saying these same words, and you say, "Why does this guy keep talking about that?" Well, it's to be sure that those people who hear this remember it, because Islam is the relationship, and Muslim is the one who does this. Simple as that. Another word. Let's get to another word that's used often in the reference talking about Islam and Muslim is the word Quran. Now, some call it Quran, but it's not proper to say Quran. It's Quran. And it has almost like a hiccup in the middle of the word Quran. 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 Because there is a letter in Arabic that we don't have in English called Hamza. And when you encounter the Hamza, you almost like hiccup like this when you're saying the word. You say, for instance, we mentioned the word in one of our programs, we said du'a, du'a. This is the Hamza. And also in Quran, you have this. Quran comes from qara'a. Ka, which is in the back of the throat. Qara'a. Quran. And it means that which is being recited. The recitation, Al-Quran, is the recitation of Almighty God. Often it's referred to as a book, and certainly it's from the book that's with Allah. It's referred to in the Quran itself as the Kitab Allah. But to be sure you understand the Quran, when you hold it in your hands and it's a paper with ink on it, this is actually Mus'haf, from the word suhuf, and is not the actual Quran of Allah. That is with Allah. But when you recite it, this is the same recitation from Muhammad that came to him from Jibril, the angel Gabriel, that came to him from Almighty Allah. And it is the speech of Allah. So Quran is the speech of Allah. And that's the way to understand this word. Now, the fact that we still have the Quran, because we have so many people, millions today, have totally memorized it from cover to cover. Every single word, every single letter, every single dot of the Quran is preserved and still pronounced the same way as it was 1400 years ago. So we have the Quran. Another thing we might tell them about the Quran is that we have it in the original language, in the Arabic. And The fact is that there are still people today speaking that exact language, the Lagatu Arabiya, and that you can go in many places in the world and hear people speak the same words that are there in the Quran, which gives us a confidence to understand that it has been preserved, and you can know exactly what the message of Islam is about. So these words that I've been talking to you about help you put in perspective from the very beginning the subject that you're talking about to the people. And whoever you speak to, they will appreciate knowing these meanings, because it will help them to better understand and define what they're talking about, what's being presented to them. When I was speaking about the word Islam, if you noticed, it was all about your relationship with God. If somebody said, for instance, Islamic, by the way, is not Arabic anymore. You put "ik" at the end of it and Latinized it. And if they said Islamic terrorism, there is no such thing. You don't do terrorism, killing innocent men, women, and children, wiping out whole neighborhoods, blowing up people, or committing suicide. You don't do that in the name of Islam, because the word itself doesn't allow for that. Now, if you said some Muslims did that, all right. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Muslims committing sins doesn't mean that it's not a sin anymore, does it? Of course not. So just because somebody's a Muslim doesn't mean they don't sin. In fact, we know Muslims sin. In fact, Muslims also will go to hell. Those who know the truth and turn against it and act contrary to it. Those especially who are the scholars of Islam, don't follow through on it, have been promised hellfire. So for those who misunderstand the words, this is, I think, acceptable, because they haven't been properly introduced. And that's Share Islam. Don't forget to visit our website, shareislam.com. And until next time, peace. Salam alaikum.